What happens when one of Hollywood's toughest men faces a host who knows no boundaries with her questions? This clash on The View went down in television history as one of the most intense moments, where a friendly interview turned into a battle of principles. No one in the studio was prepared for what happened next, not the audience, not the producers, not even the star himself. This is the story of Dwayne Johnson, known as The Rock, who came to promote his new blockbuster but found himself at the center of an emotional storm that made everyone reflect on what true strength really means. The View studio in New York that sunny morning was filled with the usual buzz. Bright spotlights gleamed on the panels. The audience, mostly middle-aged women clutching coffee cups, clapped in anticipation of the guest. The air smelled of fresh makeup and buffet coffee, and the sounds, clicking heels of the hosts, the hum of cameras, and quiet chatter, created an atmosphere of mild excitement. Joy Behar, one of the main hosts, sat at the table with a smile that seemed friendly but carried a glint in her eyes that promised sharp questions. Next to her were the other co-hosts, Sarah Haynes, nervously shuffling papers, and Sunny Hostin, trying to look relaxed but with a slightly tense smile. Producers behind the scenes monitored everything through screens, while camera operators, young guys in black t-shirts, adjusted their focus, ready to capture every move. Dwayne Johnson entered the studio with the charisma that made him a legend, tall, muscular, in a stylish suit that hugged his powerful frame, but with a warm smile that lit up the room. The audience erupted in applause, some even stood, shouting, "The Rock! The Rock!" He waved, hugged the hosts, and sat at the table, exuding confidence. "Thanks for having me," he said in a deep, resonant voice that always sounded like thunder but with a hint of kindness. "I'm here to talk about my new movie, Jungle Cruise 2, where I play a hero who saves the world with a smile. It's about adventure, family, and a bit of action." The audience laughed, and Joy nodded, but her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she were waiting for the moment to strike. The interview started lightly. Sarah Haynes asked about filming, and Sunny inquired how Dwayne balanced his career with fatherhood. He often spoke about his daughters and family values. "Family is my rock," Johnson replied, smiling. "I try to be an example of strength for them, not just physical strength, strength of heart, kindness." The audience cooed, some wiping tears. But Joy Behar, sitting across from him, cut in with that sarcastic tone that was her signature. "Strength of heart? That's sweet, Dwayne. But let's be honest. You star in all these action movies where you fight, shoot, and show off this toxic masculinity. Do you really think that's good for your daughters? Or is it just a way to make money selling stereotypes about real men?" The studio fell silent. Applause stopped, and a heavy quiet hung in the air, broken only by the faint hum of cameras. Sarah Haynes shifted uncomfortably, trying to interject. "Joy, he doesn't just do action." But Behar waved her off, her eyes locked on Johnson. Dwayne froze for a moment, his smile fading, but he quickly regained composure. Years in wrestling had taught him to take a hit. "Joy, I respect your opinion," he said calmly, though a hint of tension crept into his voice. "My movies are about heroes overcoming challenges, inspiring people to be strong. It's not about toxicity, it's about confidence, protecting those you love." The audience began whispering. Some nodded in agreement, but others, especially young women in the front rows, looked intrigued, waiting for more. Behar, however, didn't back down. She leaned forward, her voice sharper, like a knife. "Oh, please, Dwayne. You talk about strength of heart, but your movies are full of violence, fists, explosions, men saving everyone. Where's your activism? Why don't you speak out on real issues, like gender equality or fighting violence? Or are you just hiding behind your muscles because it sells? That's hypocrisy, selling the superhero image when the world needs real change." Her words hit like a slap, and the studio filled with shock. Some gasped, others grabbed their phones to record. Operators quickly switched cameras, focusing on Johnson's face, where his jaw muscles tightened and his eyes darkened. The tension was palpable. Sarah Haynes tried to smooth things over, saying, "Let's not get personal, Joy. Dwayne does a lot of good through his foundations. But Behar ignored her, pressing on. Personal? He's a public figure. People look at you, Dwayne, and think strength is all about fists. And your daughters? Do you want them growing up in a world where men like you dictate what a hero is? That's not kindness, that's archaic. Johnson clenched his fists under the table, his powerful hands capable of breaking walls, now trembling with restrained anger. His voice lowered, quivering. Joy, you're crossing a line. I'm not hiding. I live my life inspiring millions. My movies give people hope, laughter, an escape from reality. And you sit here accusing me of toxicity? You're the one creating drama for ratings. The audience split. Some clapped for Johnson, others for Behar, while producers backstage panicked, gesturing to operators not to cut the feed. The studio's atmosphere was electric, silence broken only by the click of microphones and the host's heavy breathing. No one knew where this was headed, but one thing was clear: the conflict was just beginning. The View studio was on the brink of explosion. The tension between Dwayne Johnson and Joy Behar had reached a boiling point, the air practically sparking with the sting of their words, buzzing like a swarm of bees. The audience sat breathless, some with wide eyes, others with phones aimed at the stage, capturing every moment. Camera operators, sensing the gravity, frantically switched angles, zooming in on Johnson's clenched fists, then Behar's smug smile. Sarah Haynes, trying to salvage the situation, attempted another intervention. Maybe we can talk about Dwayne's charity work? He does so much for kids. But her voice drowned in the tension, like a stone in a raging river. Sunny Hostin sat silently, her eyes darting between Johnson and Behar, as if fearing the whole thing was about to derail. Backstage, producers whispered into headsets, debating whether to cut the feed, but the skyrocketing ratings kept them glued to their seats. Joy Behar, sensing she had the upper hand, leaned closer to Johnson, her voice dripping with venomous sweetness. Oh, Dwayne, you talk about hope? Laughter? Let's be real. Your movies sell the image of an invincible tough guy who solves everything with force. You call that inspiration? It's just business, right? You make millions playing the same character, then talk about strength of heart. Do you really believe that, or is it just a nice story for the fans? Her words struck like an arrow, and the audience gasped, some in outrage, others in curiosity. A woman in the front row, holding her phone, whispered to her neighbor. She's gone too far. But Behar didn't stop, her eyes gleaming with excitement. You're not an activist, Dwayne. You don't risk your reputation or speak out on tough issues. You just play the safe card, muscles smile, everybody loves The Rock. But what do you do for real change? Nothing. Dwayne Johnson sat motionless, but his eyes blazed. His massive frame, usually radiating effortless confidence, now seemed taut, like a spring ready to snap. He took a slow breath, his chest rising, and when he spoke, his voice was low but clear, like a hammer's strike. Joy, you don't know me. You don't know what I've been through to get here. You sit at this table, throwing accusations, because it's your job to create drama. But I don't play those games. He paused, his gaze piercing Behar, and the studio froze. You want to know what I do? I build schools through my foundation. I help kids who have no chance. I talk to people who write to me, saying my movies gave them the strength to keep going. You call that a safe card? I call it the life I chose, inspiring, not tearing down. The audience erupted in applause, but Behar merely snorted, raising an eyebrow. Oh, that's cute, Dwayne. But let's not pretend you're a saint. You avoid tough issues because you're afraid of losing fans. You're not a hero, you're a brand. That was too much. Johnson's face darkened, his jaw clenched so tightly you could hear his teeth grind. He slowly rose from his chair, his 2-meter frame looming over the table, making everyone in the studio feel his presence. Cameras hummed, operators hurriedly adjusted angles, and producers backstage began to panic, waving their hands. Sarah Haynes tried again. Dwayne, maybe we... But he raised a hand, stopping her, and turned to Behar. Joy, he said, his voice trembling with restrained fury but remaining calm. I came here to talk about a movie, about the joy it brings people. But you made it personal. You accuse me of hypocrisy? Toxicity? Look in the mirror. You use this platform to tear people down instead of lifting them up. That's not strength, that's weakness. The studio exploded. Half the audience cheered, shouting, "The Rock!" while the other half sat in stunned silence. A woman in the second row filmed it all, her hands shaking with excitement. Behar, clearly unprepared for such a retort, momentarily lost her composure. Her face flushed, she opened her mouth to respond, but Johnson didn't give her a chance. "I'm not your punching bag, Joy," he continued, his voice growing louder but retaining dignity. "I'm not here to justify myself to you. My daughters look up to me, and I teach them to be strong, kind, and not let people like you tear them down for who they are. You want to talk about change? Change starts with respect, for yourself, for others, for what each of us brings to this world. My movies aren't just about muscles. They're stories of hope, struggle, and getting back up after you fall. And if you can't see that, that's your problem, not mine." He pushed his chair back, his movements slow but deliberate, and turned to the audience. "I'm not here for drama. I'm here to inspire. If you want to see real strength, look for it in the heart, not in words that hurt." With that, he removed his microphone, dropped it on the table with a soft click, and walked toward the exit. The studio fell into absolute silence, broken only by the sound of his steps, heavy but confident, like a drumbeat. Behar tried to salvage the moment, tossing out, "Well, that was dramatic, wasn't it?" But her voice wavered, and the joke fell flat. The audience was divided. Some clapped for Johnson, shouting support, while others whispered, stunned by his exit. Operators frantically filmed his broad back as he disappeared backstage, while producers shouted into headsets, "Don't cut the feed! This is gold!" Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear, and Sunny Hostin shook her head, muttering, "That was too much, Joy." The moment went viral instantly. Clips appeared on Twitter with hashtag #TheRockVSJoy, and snippets of his speech spread across Instagram. The studio buzzed like a hive, and no one knew what would happen next. As Dwayne Johnson strode off the set of The View, the studio remained in a stunned hush for what felt like an eternity, though it was mere seconds. The echo of his footsteps faded behind the heavy curtains, leaving behind a vacuum of silence that was quickly filled by a cacophony of reactions. The audience, once united in their excitement, was now fractured. A group in the back rows stood and cheered, chanting, "Rock! Rock!" with fists pumping in the air, while others sat frozen, their faces a mix of shock and disapproval. A middle-aged woman in the third row wiped away a tear, murmuring to her friend, "He didn't deserve that," as her companion nodded vigorously. Phones were out everywhere, screens glowing as people frantically shared clips on social media. Hashtag The Rock Walks Out was already trending, with videos of his powerful speech racking up thousands of views in minutes. The camera operators, still rolling, captured it all. The awkward glances between the co-hosts, the producers rushing onto the set like firefighters to a blaze, and Joy Behar herself, who sat back in her chair with a forced smile that couldn't hide the flush of embarrassment creeping up her neck. Sarah Haynes was the first to break the on-air silence, her voice shaky but professional. "Well, folks, that was unexpected. Dwayne Johnson, everyone, thank you for joining us, even if briefly." She glanced at Behar, who quickly composed herself and added, "Yes, passions run high here on The View. We'll be right back after this commercial break." But the damage was done. As the show cut to ads, the studio erupted into whispers and debates. Sunny Hostin leaned over to Behar, her expression a blend of concern and frustration. "Joy, that was intense. You pushed too hard." Behar shrugged, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of regret. "It's what we do, spark conversation. He'll be fine, he's The Rock." Behind the scenes, producers were in full panic mode. One, a harried woman with a clipboard, barked into her headset, "Get security to escort him out politely, and prep a statement. This is going viral, good for ratings, but we need damage control." Security guards, burly but discreet, met Johnson in the hallway, but he waved them off with a polite nod. "I'm good, guys. Just heading out." He exited the building with his head held high, flashing a quick smile to the fans gathered outside, though his eyes still held the storm of the confrontation. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind. By the time Johnson reached his car, his phone was blowing up with notifications, texts from friends, calls from his agent, and alerts from social media. Clips of the interview were everywhere, TikTok edits set to dramatic music, Twitter threads dissecting every word, and Instagram reels praising his poise. Fans rallied behind him. "The Rock just schooled Joy on real strength. #Team Rock," read one viral tweet, garnering millions of likes. Critics of Behar piled on. "She's always crossing lines for shock value. Respect to Dwayne for walking out with class." But not everyone sided with Johnson. Some defended Behar, arguing, "She asked valid questions about Hollywood's role in perpetuating stereotypes. He couldn't handle the heat." The divide was clear, sparking heated online debates that trended worldwide. The View's ratings spiked to record highs for the episode, but at a cost. Publicists for the show issued a statement later that day. "We value open dialogue and regret if any guest felt disrespected. Dwayne Johnson is a tremendous talent, and we wish him success with his new film." In the days that followed, the incident rippled through the media landscape like a shockwave. Major outlets picked it up. CNN ran a segment on "When Interviews Go Wrong," featuring experts analyzing the clash as a commentary on celebrity accountability versus media provocation. Entertainment Tonight interviewed Johnson, where he reflected calmly, "I stand by what I said. It's not about winning an argument, it's about standing up for what you believe in, with respect." His words only amplified his image as a grounded icon, boosting pre-sales for Jungle Cruise 2 as fans flocked to support him. Behar, ever the provocateur, addressed it on the next episode of The View. "Look, I ask tough questions because that's my job. No hard feelings to Dwayne, he's a pro. But let's talk about why these conversations matter." Her co-host nodded along, but the awkwardness lingered, and viewership dipped slightly as some boycotted in solidarity with Johnson. Social media influencers weighed in, turning the moment into memes. One popular one showed Johnson's exit with the caption, "When you realize the real villain is the host," while another defended Behar with, "Asking hard questions isn't toxicity, it's journalism." On a deeper level, the confrontation became a teachable moment, resonating far beyond the glitz of Hollywood. Johnson's speech about strength in the heart struck a chord with parents, athletes, and everyday people struggling with societal expectations of masculinity. Online forums buzzed with discussions. "Dwayne showed that true power isn't in muscles, it's in kindness and boundaries," posted one user on Reddit, sparking thousands of upvotes. Mental health advocates praised him for highlighting how personal attacks can harm, drawing parallels to broader issues like bullying in media. Behar's approach, while criticized, prompted reflections on journalism ethics. When does probing become prying? The lesson was clear and universal. In a world quick to judge and tear down, real change comes from mutual respect, valuing diverse ways of influencing the world, whether through action films that inspire hope or tough questions that challenge norms. Johnson's actions demonstrated that walking away isn't weakness, it's dignity in the face of unnecessary conflict. It encouraged viewers to examine their own interactions. How do we use our platforms, big or small, to build up rather than break down? As the dust settled, Johnson's reputation emerged stronger than ever. He posted a heartfelt message on Instagram. "Thanks for the support, everyone. Remember, strength isn't about never falling, it's about rising with grace. Let's spread more positivity." The post garnered over 10 million likes, with celebrities like Ryan Reynolds chiming in. "Class act, brother. You handled that like a champ." Behar, for her part, saw a mixed bag. While some fans appreciated her boldness, others called for more empathy in future interviews. The incident even inspired a wave of think pieces on toxic masculinity versus authentic strength, proving that from conflict can come growth. What do you think about this clash? Was Dwayne right to walk out, or did Joy raise fair points? Who handled it better, and what does it say about how we talk to each other in today's world? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Did this moment change how you view celebrity interviews? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this that dive into the drama behind the headlines. Your voice matters. Let's keep the conversation going.